Salzburg, winter of 1538. In a forgotten crypt, while snow blanketed the monastery roofs like a white shroud, a man wrote his final confession with ink made of soul and silence. His name was Paracelsus. That parchment didn't hold formulas or theories. It was a grimoire of life, a book sealed with alchemical symbols where every word was a spell, every sentence a sacred command able to change flesh, blood, and consciousness. Celso had uncovered the unbelievable truth. The body doesn't obey pills but words, that cells are followers of the words naming them, and that each organ waits quietly for the command to wake it. That's why he hid this knowledge, because he knew not everyone was ready. But now that the soul of the world is calling to remember, this manuscript has returned. Anyone who listens through won't get an audiobook. They'll experience a ritual of inner awakening, a key to speak to their body like ancient sages spoke to the stars. This isn't a book, it's a wake-up call, a secret ceremony between you and the verb that gave life. I write this in the year 1541, while the flames of the pyre threaten those of us daring to challenge medical lies. May these words survive long after my body has turned to ash. There was a merchant in Basel named Johann Wise. I remember him because he was the first man I saw die by his own words, and then come back to life once he learned how to change them. He came to me carrying a death he had built himself. Doctors called it cancer, but I recognized it as the result of years spent cursing his own temple. "I'm a cursed man," he kept saying. "My body's betraying me. Every day I rot a little more." I listened closely, not to the doctor's diagnosis, but to the words he spoke, because I'd learned something no doctor knew. The human body is the soul's most faithful scribe. Every word you say, every thought you hold, every emotion you feel becomes an exact instruction for your organs. Your liver doesn't know you're being dramatic when you say, "I'm dying of rage." Your heart doesn't get that it's just an expression when you say, "This is killing me." Your cells understand only one language: absolute obedience. During my years studying in Egypt's monasteries, the Hermetic masters taught me that the physical body is just the dense form of our subtle bodies, that every disease first arises in the etheric body, then the astral, before showing up in the flesh. But I found something more. I learned that words are the bridge between these worlds. When Johann said, "I rot," he wasn't just expressing a feeling. He was giving a direct command to his etheric body. He was programming cellular decay, writing the decree of his own destruction in invisible ink. I explained that his disease wasn't cancer. His disease was ignorance of the creative power of his own words. Every cell in your body has a primitive but perfect intelligence. It doesn't reason or judge. It simply obeys. It's like a soldier who follows orders without asking if they come from the general or the enemy. When you say, "This makes me sick," your cells answer, "Yes, sir," initiating the disease process. When you say, "I can't take it anymore," your nervous system whispers, "Got it," and cuts the energy supply. When you murmur, "Everything hurts," your nerve endings confirm, order received, pain signal increased. This knowledge didn't come from study, but from revelation. One night, while experimenting with alchemy and distilling the philosophical mercury, my consciousness expanded beyond the lab. I saw lines of light connecting every thought to every cell. I saw how words create geometric patterns in the aura that then crystallize in the tissues. That night I realized true medicine isn't about fighting symptoms. It's about correcting the wrong commands the soul has given the body. I taught Johann what I called the breath of the sacred word. But this wasn't just a practice. It was a powerful ritual that reprogrammed cellular memory directly. Every morning before sunrise, Johann faced the horizon. He placed his left hand over his heart and his right over his solar plexus, the centers where emotions are stored and later transformed into body chemistry. He breathed deeply, filling his belly first, then chest, then throat. With each inhale, he took in the morning prana. With each exhale, he released built-up emotional toxins. And while breathing, he spoke these words like a sacred prayer. My body is the perfect temple of my immortal soul. Every cell vibrates in divine harmony. My blood is the sacred river carrying life to every part of me. My organs dance to the rhythm of perfect health, which is my true nature. But he didn't say these like a mantra. He spoke them like a commander issuing orders, with authority and certainty, knowing the power of his words. 7 breaths, 7 times, 7 direct commands to the 70 billion cellular soldiers in his body. In the first week, nothing changed physically, but something deep shifted in his energy. He stopped sending death signals and started vibrating with life. In the second week, the gray tone of his skin began to fade. His eyes lost their cloudy, dying look. By week 4, he kept food down without vomiting. His stomach stopped receiving orders to destroy. By week 8, Basil's doctors were baffled. The tumor had disappeared completely, but I knew it wasn't a cure. It was a correction. Johann had learned to speak to his body in the language it understands, the language of loving authority. Doctors see symptoms, healers see words made flesh. Doctors attack disease, healers fix the verb. Doctors fight the body, healers remind the body of its divine nature. This is the first law of Hermetic medicine. Your body is your perfect creation and obeys exactly what you command it to create. If you command disease, it creates disease. If you command health, it creates health. If you command aging, it creates aging. If you command regeneration, it creates regeneration. The choice is yours. But be careful. This knowledge comes with heavy responsibility. Once you know your words create your physical reality, you can no longer blame circumstances, germs, genetics, or fate. Your body is your responsibility. Your health is your creation. Your disease is your decree. Your healing is your power. May these words find those ready to hear the truth, even if it shatters the comfortable lies you've lived by. Chapter 2. Blood Listens. Your blood is liquid ink that writes your destiny. The year was 1538. I had been called to the court of Duke Ferdinand of Tyrol to examine his wife, Duchess Philippine. The court doctors whispered that she was suffering from corrupted blood and wouldn't survive the winter. I found her in her chambers, pale as a fading moon, with deep shadows under her eyes from sleepless nights. But it wasn't her physical symptoms that caught my attention. It was something much deeper. Every time she talked about her condition, she instinctively touched her chest just above her heart, and every word she spoke felt like a dagger aimed at her own blood. "My blood is poisoned," she said. "I feel it rotting inside me. Every heartbeat brings death to my organs." The doctors nodded, agreeing with their diagnosis. But I saw something different. I saw a woman whose own words were literally poisoning her bloodstream. That night, in my lab while distilling lunar essences to create an elixir, I had a vision that would change forever how I understood human blood. In an alchemical trance, my awareness dove deep into my own bloodstream. I saw what no doctor had ever seen. Blood is not just a fluid that carries nutrients. It's a conscious river carrying the soul's commands to every cell in the body. Every drop of blood is like a messenger, whispering to the organs the orders you give with your words, your thoughts, your feelings. Your blood doesn't distinguish between a conscious command and an unconscious complaint. It simply carries the vibrational information you send it. When Philippine said, "My blood is poisoned," her red blood cells literally received the order to carry toxins. When she said, I feel it rotting inside me. Her blood cells started vibrating at the frequency of decay. I saw how every negative word she had spoken over the years became a chemical command. Her fears turned into stress hormones. Her despair crystallized into nutritional deficiencies. Her sense of being poisoned made her immune system attack her own tissues. But I saw something even more amazing. Blood has memory. Every trauma, every joy, every word you've spoken is recorded in the liquid flow of your bloodstream as information that is constantly transmitted. The next day, I returned to the Duchess's chambers with knowledge no doctor had. I explained that her blood wasn't sick. Her blood was obeying. "Your Highness," I said, "your blood is perfect. It's the most obedient instrument you have. It's been carrying out exactly the orders you've given it." She looked at me, confused. "What orders?" she asked. "Every time you say, 'My blood is poisoned,' you order it to poison itself. Every time you say, 'It's rotting inside me,' you order it to rot. Every time you whisper, 'It brings death to my organs,' you order it to carry death." Tears filled her eyes, not sorrow, but understanding. For the first time, she realized she had been the architect of her own illness. I then taught her what I called the sacred names of the blood. In the Hermetic tradition I learned in Egypt, every part of the body has a secret name, a name which, when spoken with knowledge and authority, awakens that element's divine nature. The sacred name of blood is Jaima So, blood of life. But it's not enough to just say the words. You have to understand that your blood is the sacred river linking your soul to every cell of your body. Each morning for 21 days, Philippine did what I called the consecration of the sacred blood, sitting cross-legged with her palms over her heart. She pictured her blood as a river of golden light flowing through her entire being. As she breathed deeply, she spoke these words with the confidence of someone who knows her power. Jaima So, blood of divine life flowing through my veins. Every drop is perfect medicine. Every blood cell is a messenger of health. My blood carries life, energy, and healing to every organ, every tissue, every cell of my sacred temple. But it was more than a prayer. It was a full reprogramming of what her blood carried. During the visualization, she saw her golden blood cleansing each organ, nourishing every cell, delivering pure oxygen and vitality everywhere. She felt her heart pumping not just blood, but pure consciousness, liquid love, concentrated life. The results were incredible. In the first week, color returned to her cheeks. In the second, her energy soared. By the third week, tests showed her blood had returned to normal. But the real miracle wasn't the physical cure. It was that Philippine understood something that changed her life forever. Her blood was her most loyal ally, not her enemy. Years later, when she wrote me from Italy, she said she had taught this technique to dozens of nobles suffering from corrupted blood. All of them healed. All understood their blood was the perfect vehicle for their consciousness. In my later research, I found the ancient Egyptians knew this secret. They called blood the inner Nile, seeing it as the river connecting the physical and spiritual worlds. Arab alchemists called it living mercury because they knew it transformed thoughts into reality. Hebrew Kabbalists called it the ink of God because they saw it as the medium through which divine consciousness writes human experience. But this knowledge had been lost. Doctors began to see blood as just a mechanical fluid, ignoring its conscious, obedient nature. Every time you say, "My blood is well," your blood vibrates at the frequency of wellness. Every time you say, "My blood is perfect," your blood cells align with perfection. Every time you declare, "My blood carries life," every drop becomes liquid medicine. But it also works the other way. Every time you complain about your blood, you weaken it. Every time you blame your blood for your illness, you program it to make you sick. Every time you see it as your enemy, it becomes your enemy. Your blood is the most direct messenger between your soul and your body. It carries not just nutrients, but commands. Not just oxygen, but consciousness. Not just cells, but orders. And the quality of what it carries depends entirely on the quality of the commands you give it. I have seen men die with perfectly healthy blood simply because they decreed their own death. I have seen severe anemia healed because they declared their vitality. I have watched children recover from leukemia because their mothers learned to speak to their blood in the language of love. Blood doesn't lie. Blood doesn't deceive. Blood obeys. If you want to know the true state of your consciousness, pay attention to your blood. If you want to change your physical destiny, change the messages you send to your blood. Because your blood is liquid ink that writes your destiny into every cell of your body. And you, and only you, decide which story gets written. Chapter 3. The Poison of Emotions. Unreleased emotions are the only poisons the soul distills itself. I have seen more men die from the poison of their own rage than from all the poisonous herbs in barbarian forests. And I have witnessed miraculous healings in those who learned the secret I now share with you. Every unreleased emotion turns into a deadly chemical that the body faithfully obeys to produce. It was the winter of 1536 when Doña Catalina de Mendoza came to my practice in Enelador, Carlos. Her face, once called the most beautiful in Castile, now showed the scars of a disease no doctor could identify. Bleeding ulcers appeared and disappeared across her body with no clear pattern. Her skin turned yellow for days at a time, and her eyes sunken, as if life itself was slipping away, drop by drop. The finest doctors in Spain had declared she suffered from a corruption of the humors that was impossible to cure. They tried bloodletting, purges, poultices of rare herbs from the Indies, even exorcisms ordered by the Inquisition. Nothing helped. Each treatment made her condition worse. When she came to me, wrapped in veils to hide the sores on her face, I immediately saw the real cause of her illness. It wasn't in her physical body, but in the subtle bodies that support it. Around her heart, invisible to mortal eyes but clear to someone trained in hermetic secrets. There was a dense cloud of purple and black energy swirling, like poisonous smoke trapped with no escape. I asked her not to describe her symptoms, but to tell me the story of her heart. At first, she resisted, as all sick people do, choosing to hide the cause rather than face the cure. But when I explained that every repressed emotion turns into a specific poison the body must manifest, her defenses crumbled like sandcastles. She admitted that for 15 years she'd held a fierce hatred toward her younger sister, who had seduced her fiancé right before their wedding. She had never expressed that anger, never confronted the betrayal, never released the poison growing inside her like a serpent eating its own tail. Instead, she smiled in public, kept the composure of a noble woman, swallowing her humiliation every day until it became a deadly elixir. I then explained the first law of emotional alchemy. Every emotion is a real substance the body produces exactly as commanded. When we repress anger, the body creates the chemicals of anger and stores them in the tissues. When we deny sadness, the body makes compounds of melancholy and deposits them in the organs. When we hide fear, the body generates poisons of terror and builds them up in the blood. Every unexpressed emotion becomes a toxic order the body carries out without question. Repressed anger turns into inflammation, ulcers, liver, and gallbladder problems. Stored sadness becomes depression, lung issues, kidney weakness. Hidden fear breeds anxiety, heart troubles, and a fragile nervous system. Unreleased guilt shows up as digestive problems, autoimmune diseases, and unexplained pain. With tears streaming down her wounded cheeks, Doña Catalina asked if it was possible to undo 15 years of poison. I told her the body is the most obedient servant you'll ever find, and if it faithfully obeyed those toxic commands, it will just as faithfully obey commands for healing. I then taught her a technique I call the transmutation of emotional poison, a secret I found in forbidden manuscripts from the monastery of St. Catherine in the Sinai Desert. First, she had to recognize and name each repressed emotion exactly. It wasn't enough to say, "I'm sad" or "I'm angry." She had to say, "I feel burning anger toward my sister for betraying me. I feel humiliation for being publicly ridiculed. I feel guilt for wishing her dead. I feel fear that I may never trust again." Second, she had to consciously give her body permission to release the stored toxins, placing her hands over each affected organ and saying these exact words: "Body of mine, faithful servant, I command you to release now all the poison you have stored through obedience. I no longer need these painful chemicals. I release them with gratitude for protecting me, and I command you to create only chemicals of peace, forgiveness, and renewal." Third, she had to physically express each emotion until she felt completely free, shouting her anger until her throat cleared, crying her sadness until no tears were left, trembling with fear until her nervous system calmed naturally. Fourth, once the poison was released, she had to issue clear, positive commands. "Body of mine, now produce the compounds of compassion toward my sister, for she too suffered. Produce the chemicals of forgiveness toward myself, for I did the best I could with what I knew. Produce substances of renewed trust, for I am able to discern who deserves my heart." Fifth, she had to feed these commands daily with words of power, spoken with full conviction each morning upon waking. "Every cell in my body now vibrates with chemicals of peace. My skin renews with compounds of divine beauty. My blood flows with elixirs of joy. My heart beats to the rhythm of unconditional love." Doña Catalina practiced this technique for 40 days, the time the body needs to renew most of its tissues. By the 10th day, her ulcers started to heal. By the 20th, the yellow tint in her skin faded. By the 30th, her eyes regained their lost brightness. On the 40th day, when she came back for a checkup, she looked 10 years younger. But the most remarkable change was in her spirit. She told me that for the first time in 15 years, she felt truly free, like she had escaped a prison of her own making. She had written a letter to her sister, forgiving her completely, and received a heartfelt reply full of remorse and gratitude. Years later, I learned that Doña Catalina married a noble knight from the French court, had 3 healthy children, and lived to 80 without serious illness ever returning. She had discovered a secret few ever learn. We are the only alchemists capable of turning poison into medicine, pain into wisdom, and wounds into power. The truth you must engrave on your soul is this: your body can't tell the difference between an emotion you feel and one you try to hide. When you repress an emotion, your body assumes it needs to create and keep the chemicals that go with it. When you express and release an emotion, your body understands it can stop producing those chemicals and start making new ones based on your fresh commands. There's no set time to heal emotionally, only the choice to bring the unconscious into the light, to name what's been nameless, to let go of what's trapped, and to call in the new. Right now, your body is waiting for your conscious instructions, ready to stop obeying those unconscious orders that hurt it. The deadliest poison doesn't come from desert snakes. It comes from emotions we refuse to feel. The most powerful medicine isn't found in forest herbs. It's in the courage to fully feel what we've been avoiding. Every released emotion is a prisoner coming home. Every transformed toxin becomes an elixir of life. Your body, always obedient, always faithful, is waiting for you to teach it the difference between serving your fear and serving your freedom. Chapter 4. The Sacred Geometry of the Body. The human body is a temple where divine geometry takes form. In 1539, while studying forbidden manuscripts at the monastery of Sangal, I uncovered a secret that forever changed how I understand healing. Every organ in your body follows a perfect geometric pattern that reflects the sacred laws of the universe. When these patterns get distorted, disease appears. When they're restored, healing miracles happen. Brother Magnus, a Benedictine monk who spent 30 years in the deserts of Egypt, shared this wisdom with me. Though blind to the physical world, his eyes saw the luminous shapes dancing around every human being. He taught me that the aura is nothing more than the sacred geometry of life expressed through patterns of light. The first case I observed was a young merchant named Friedrich Weber, who suffered a paralysis starting in his legs and slowly moving up toward his heart. The doctors in Nuremberg had given him a death sentence. No treatment could stop his condition from worsening. Using the Hermetic vision, I saw that the geometric spirals that should flow from his spine were broken, as if an invisible storm had shattered the sacred design of his energetic body. I asked when his illness started, and he said the symptoms began exactly 1 week after his father disinherited him for refusing to take over the family business. In that moment, I understood the emotional shock had warped the geometry of his vital force, and his physical body was just following the distorted blueprint coming from the subtle realms. I explained the fundamental law of sacred geometry. Your body is the physical reflection of perfect geometric patterns that exist on subtle planes. Each organ vibrates according to a specific shape. The heart beats following the golden spiral. The lungs expand in octagonal patterns. The liver pulses in hexagons. The kidneys filter in sinusoidal waves. Emotional trauma, toxic thoughts, or energetic shocks distort these patterns. The body, ever obedient, begins to show the imperfect geometry it's been commanded to follow. Disease is distorted geometry made real. I taught Friedrich the technique of geometric realignment, based on the Hermetic papyri of Alexandria. First, he visualized his spine as a ladder of golden light connecting earth and heaven. Then he imagined a perfect blue spiral of light flowing out from each vertebra throughout his body. Each morning for 1 hour, Friedrich traced correct geometric patterns on his body with his hands while speaking words of power. I now restore the perfect geometry of my sacred temple. Every cell vibrates to divine patterns. My spine is Jacob's ladder. My organs are the jewels of the cosmos. My blood flows in harmony with universal laws. He began by drawing perfect circles around his heart, visualizing vital energy reorganizing into golden spirals. Then he traced triangles on his brow to activate the geometry of the higher mind. Next, he formed pentagons on his abdomen to restore personal power. By the 7th day, he felt tingling in his paralyzed legs. By the 10th, he could wiggle his toes. By the 15th, he stood for the first time in 6 months. And by the 20th, he walked freely through Nuremberg's streets. The greatest miracle was that Friedrich didn't just regain physical movement. He developed an extraordinary gift for seeing sacred geometry in others. He became my most talented student, and together we healed hundreds using geometric restoration. The truth you need to understand is this: your body is not just a machine of flesh and bone, but a geometric temple where divine laws take shape. Every illness is a geometric distortion that can be corrected by restoring the perfect patterns that govern your system. Your heart must beat in the golden spiral like galaxies in motion. Your lungs must expand in the sacred octagon. Your mind must vibrate in fractal patterns like crystals in the earth. When you consciously trace these shapes over your body, you send precise orders to reorganize according to divine geometry. When you visualize perfect forms flowing through your organs, you rebuild the sacred architecture of your living temple. Disease is distorted geometry. Health is perfect geometry, and you are the sacred architect who can instantly restore the mathematical beauty of your own temple. Chapter 5. The Heart as Altar. The heart isn't just a pump for blood. It's the altar where the soul celebrates the mass of life. In the winter of 1538, while I was taking refuge from inquisitorial persecution in the Corinthian mountains, a message came to my hiding place that changed how I understood the true power of the human heart. A nobleman from the papal court, Lorenzo de' Medici, was dying in Florence after 3 cardinals failed to heal him with their prayers and holy relics. His condition was unusual. His heart beat erratically, as if it answered to 2 different masters. By day, it worked normally, but every night, exactly at Compline, it throbbed so violently it woke the whole household. The best doctors in Italy said he would die before dawn unless a miracle cure was found. When I arrived at his palace, disguised as a humble pilgrim, I immediately saw the real nature of his problem. Lorenzo's heart wasn't physically sick. It was his soul's altar that had been desecrated by years of choices against his purest conscience. In a private confession, he told me he'd lived a double life for 20 years. By day, he was a devout supporter of sacred arts, backing painters and sculptors who honored God. By night, he became Florence's most ruthless moneylender, ruining families with loans they could never repay. His heart, the altar where the mass of unconditional love should be celebrated, had turned into a marketplace of contradictions. By day, it resonated with divine charity. By night, it pulsed with greed. This split created an electromagnetic conflict, literally tearing his heart muscle apart. I then shared a secret from the Coptic manuscripts of the monastery of St. Catherine. The heart isn't just an organ that pumps blood. It's the body's most powerful electromagnetic center, generating an energy field 5,000 times stronger than the brain's. Every thought, emotion, and decision is first processed by the heart before showing up in physical reality. When you live in harmony with your heart's purest truths, it generates electromagnetic waves that heal your body and everything around you. When you betray your noble heart's impulses, you create electromagnetic interference that shows up as heart disease, circulation issues, and a deep disconnection from your life's purpose. I taught Lorenzo the technique of the sacred altar, a healing method I had developed after years of studying the heart's mysteries. First, he had to purify his heart by confessing aloud every betrayal he'd committed against its guidance. Mental repentance alone wasn't enough. He had to say each contradiction until he physically felt the built-up electromagnetic tension release. Second, he had to reconsecrate his heart as a sacred altar by placing both hands on his chest and saying these words of power. Heart of mine, sacred altar of my soul, I reconsecrate you as the temple of divine love. May every heartbeat be a prayer, every pulse a blessing, every rhythm a hymn of gratitude. I command you to vibrate only with the frequency of unconditional love. Third, he had to start a daily ritual of cardiac coherence. Every morning before dawn, sit quietly with his hands on his heart and consciously sync his breathing with his heartbeat. Inhale for 5 beats, hold for 5, exhale for 5. This practice would create harmony between his heart, brain, and nervous system. Fourth, he had to make a firm decision, either live fully according to his heart's noble guidance, or abandon forever the activities that contradicted it. He could no longer remain a divided altar without destroying his heart. Lorenzo chose total harmony. That very night he forgave all the debts of the families he had harmed, turned his lone house into a hospital for the poor, and dedicated the rest of his fortune to real charitable work. Freed from electromagnetic conflict, his heart began beating in perfect rhythm at dawn. He lived 30 more years and became one of Italy's most respected men. Remarkably, those who spent time near him reported spontaneous healing of their own heart problems. His heart, now a pure altar, radiated electromagnetic waves so coherent they healed all who came with sincere faith. The truth you must engrave on your soul is this: your heart is the altar where your soul celebrates the Mass of your life. Every heartbeat is a prayer you send to the universe. Every pulse is a declaration of what you truly value. Every rhythm shapes the reality you want to create. When your heart beats in harmony with your purest values, it becomes a channel of divine power that heals your body and transforms everything you touch. When your heart beats against your conscience, it creates electromagnetic interference that appears as illness, frustration, and disconnection. You can't fool your heart with mental excuses. It knows the truth of every choice before your mind can justify it. It knows when you live your sacred purpose and when you betray your divine mission. Your heart is the altar where heaven and earth meet in your body. Keep it pure, and it will be your greatest medicine. Let contradictions pollute it, and it will be your greatest pain. The choice, as always, is yours. Chapter 6. Breath as a bridge. With every breath, the soul descends from heaven to kiss matter, and matter rises to embrace spirit. During my exile in the Carpathian Mountains in 1540, I witnessed the most extraordinary miracle of my life as a healer. A young peasant girl named Margarita, the blacksmith's daughter in the village, had spent 3 years unable to speak or walk after being attacked by a pack of wolves. The monks of the nearby monastery claimed she was possessed by demons because her body convulsed violently every time she tried to breathe. When I first saw her, I immediately understood she wasn't possessed by evil forces, but disconnected from the most sacred force that exists. The divine bridge linking soul and body through breath. Trauma had broken that connection, and her spirit wandered like an orphan in subtle realms, unable to fully inhabit its temple of flesh. During my years studying in Egyptian monasteries, I learned that breathing isn't just a mechanical exchange of gases. It's a sacred vehicle that carries vital force from divine realms to every cell in the body. Each breath brings not only oxygen, but prana, pneuma, ruach, the breath of God itself, which gives life to inert matter. I explained to Margarita's father that his daughter wasn't truly breathing, but merely surviving on shallow breaths that failed to connect her spirit to her body. To heal her, I had to teach her to breathe again as a whole person, not just a wounded animal gasping for air. I began with a method I called the sacred bridge, developed after years observing how great mystics used breath to consciously move between worlds. First, I placed my hands on Margarita's chest and spoke directly to her soul, knowing that even though her conscious mind couldn't respond, her spirit heard every word. I said, "Margarita, your soul knows the way back home. With every breath we take together, we will show it the bridge that lets it fully inhabit your body again. There's no rush, no fear, just the eternal rhythm of heaven and earth meeting in your heart." I breathed deeply with my hands on her chest so she could feel the natural flow of a full breath. Inhaling slowly for 8 heartbeats, holding for 4, exhaling for 8. This rhythm, taken from Hermetic manuscripts, is exactly how the soul moves in and out of the body. After an hour of breathing together, Margarita began unconsciously copying my pattern. Her convulsions lessened, and for the first time in 3 years, peace appeared on her face. Her soul remembered the way back. Over the next few weeks, I taught her the 4 sacred breaths every person must know to keep a perfect connection between spirit and body. The first was the rooting breath, which connects the soul to the physical body. Inhale, directing air to the base of the spine, imagining golden roots reaching deep into the earth. The second was the elevating breath, which links the body to the higher soul realms. Inhale, carrying air to the crown of the head, visualizing a thread of light stretching to the stars. The third was the expansive breath, which connects the heart to all that exists. Inhale, expanding the chest as if embracing the whole universe. The fourth was the integrating breath, which unites the brain, heart, and belly in a conscious circuit, forming one living temple. Margarita practiced these breathings for 40 days, the time it takes for the spirit to create new patterns in the body. On the 10th day, she spoke her first word in 3 years. Thank you. By the 20th day, she stood and walked to the window to watch the sunrise. On the 30th day, she sang a childhood song. By the 40th day, she had fully regained her speech and mobility. Most remarkably, Margarita developed new abilities she didn't have before the trauma. She could sense others' ailments by watching their breathing and heal pain by placing her hands on the sick while breathing sacred rhythms. Her breath became medicine for those around her. The truth you need to understand is this: your breath is the most direct bridge between your soul and your body. Every inhalation invites your spirit to dwell more fully in your physical temple. Every exhalation is an offering to the universe of all you no longer need. When you breathe shallowly, your soul barely touches your body. You live as a spirit without a home, disconnected from your power, purpose, and life force. When you breathe deeply and mindfully, your soul settles fully into your body and transforms it into a temple of divine power. Most illnesses are simply disconnections between soul and body, caused by incomplete breaths. Fear cuts your breath and disconnects spirit from the belly. Sadness cuts your breath and disconnects spirit from the heart. Confusion cuts your breath and disconnects spirit from the brain. Your breath is your most powerful medicine because it's the only bridge you consciously control that unites all parts of your being. Breathe like a master, and your soul will reign as queen of your body. Breathe like a slave, and your body will become your soul's prison. Right now, as you absorb these words, you have the power to transform your whole life simply by changing how you breathe. Your next breath can be the first step toward total reconnection with your divine power, or just another breath of unconscious survival. The choice, as always, is yours. But remember, every breath is a vote for the life you want to live. Chapter 7. The Power of the Spoken Word. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word remains the most powerful creative force humans can wield. In the fall of 1541, just months before I wrote these lines, a case came to my refuge in the Salzburg Mountains that clearly demonstrated the absolute power of the spoken word over physical matter. A merchant from Vienna named Hans Zimmermann had completely lost his sight after an explosion in his gunpowder workshop. The best eye doctors in the empire had examined him and declared his optic nerves were totally destroyed, with no chance of recovery. But when Hans came to me, guided by his wife along mountain paths that would challenge even men with perfect vision, I saw something no doctor had noticed. His physical eyes were blind, but his soul's eyes shone brighter than before the accident. The trauma closed one door but opened a far more powerful one. I then shared with him the most closely guarded secret of all Hermetic mysteries. The spoken word is the creative force God used to bring the universe into being. That same force lives in every human throat. When you say a word with complete conviction, your throat becomes the workshop where spirit shapes physical reality. Every word you speak is a decree your body must obey. During my years studying in Egyptian temples, I learned that spoken words have three distinct powers depending on how they're pronounced. First is the sleeping word, used unconsciously by most people. These words have no creative power because they leave the throat without the soul's sustaining force. Second is the awakened word, spoken by those who've begun to understand the power of their declarations. These words influence emotions and thoughts, but don't change physical matter. Third is the ignited word, which only those who have fully unified soul, heart, and throat into one instrument of divine power can speak. These words have the power to command cells, order organs, and decree full regeneration of the body. I taught Hans that his physical blindness was actually a hidden gift, because now he could learn to see with the eyes of the soul and speak with the authority of someone no longer distracted by the surface of the material world. His words would have greater power precisely because he had learned to listen to silence. We started with a technique I called the decree of regeneration, a method I perfected after years studying the sacred papyri of Alexandria. First, Hans placed his hands over his closed eyes and consciously connected his throat with his heart and soul. He did this by breathing deeply until he felt the three parts of his being vibrating in perfect harmony. Second, he spoke words of power with such absolute conviction that every cell in his body heard them as direct orders from the Creator. The exact words I taught him were, "I am the light that illuminates my own eyes. I command my optic nerves to regenerate completely. I decree that my sight be restored more perfectly than before. These words are the absolute truth that my body now obeys." Third, he repeated these decrees 3 times each morning at sunrise, the moment when the universe's creative force is most active. He spoke each word as if it were the first time that word existed in the world, with the freshness of original creation. Fourth, throughout the day, he spoke only words that supported the decree of regeneration. This meant completely removing phrases like, "I cannot see," "I am blind," or "it is too dark" from his vocabulary. Instead, he constantly said, "I am restoring my sight. I see more clearly every day. My eyes grow stronger with each moment." Hans followed this practice with a dedication that bordered on sacred obsession. On the 7th day, he began to perceive faint lights where before there had been only darkness. On the 14th day, he could make out the shapes of people approaching. On the 21st day, he fully regained vision in his right eye. By the 30th day, both eyes worked perfectly. Yet the most extraordinary thing wasn't just his restored sight. It was that he could now see things invisible before the accident. He could sense people's auras, detect illnesses by observing the light patterns around their bodies, and read the deepest thoughts in the eyes of those looking at him. When I asked how he explained this miracle, he answered with words I'll never forget. "Master, it wasn't my eyes that healed, but my word that woke up. When I learned to speak with the authority of my soul, my body had no choice but to obey. Now I see that for years I was unknowingly commanding my own blindness with words of doubt and limitation. The truth you must imprint on your soul is this: every word you speak is a command your body is forced to follow. When you say, 'I am ill,' your body takes it as a direct order and starts producing the chemicals of disease. When you say, 'I am tired,' your nervous system immediately lowers its energy. When you say, "I cannot," your cells literally weaken. But when you learn to speak with ignited words, your throat becomes the scepter of a king who fully rules his body. When you say, "I am perfectly healthy," your body rallies all its resources to create perfect health. When you declare, "I have unlimited energy," your nervous system powers up like a divine engine. Most people are slaves to their unconscious words. They speak of their limits as if they were permanent truths, of their illnesses as if they define them, of their fears as if they were realities. And their obedient bodies deliver exactly what their unconscious commands order. Your word is your magic wand, your royal scepter, your sword of power. But like any divine tool, it can build or destroy, depending on the wisdom of the one who wields it. Every time you speak, you choose whether to declare life or sentence death upon your own body. Right now, as you hear these words, you have the power to change your entire reality simply by changing how you speak. Your next word might start your full healing, or it might reinforce the limits that keep you trapped. The power lies in your throat, waiting for your conscious command. The question isn't if you have this power, it's whether you have the courage to use it responsibly, like a true creator. Speak like a god, and your body will obey like a sacred temple. Speak like a slave, and your body will act like a prison. The word is yours, and with it, your destiny. Chapter 8. The medicine of consciousness. Disease doesn't start in the body, but in the sleeping consciousness that has forgotten its divine power to create perfect health. In the summer of 1541, while finishing my studies on the mysteries of the human body, I encountered the most extraordinary case of my healing career. Isabelle de Montmorency, a noble woman from France, developed an illness that defied all medical logic. Every organ in her body showed a different problem, as if 7 sick women lived in one frame. Her heart beat irregularly like an old woman's, even though she was only 28. Her liver was inflamed like a hardened drunkard's, despite never tasting wine. Her lungs wheezed like a miner's, even though she spent her life in the pure gardens of Normandy. Her kidneys barely worked. Her stomach rejected all food. Her skin was covered with mysterious eruptions. The top doctors in Paris said she was under a diabolical curse, because no one could have so many diseases without supernatural forces. When she arrived at my refuge, carried on a litter because she couldn't walk, I immediately saw the true cause of her many ailments. Isabelle didn't suffer from 7 different diseases. She suffered from one, a fractured consciousness. For years, she had lived as 7 different people depending on the situation, each with its own beliefs, fears, and limits. Her obedient body created a specific illness for each piece of her divided self. At court, she was the perfect lady, holding back all her natural spontaneity. With her husband, she played the submissive wife, hiding her sharp intellect. With her kids, she was the self-sacrificing mother, putting aside her own needs. With her servants, she acted as a tough mistress, masking her natural kindness. And with her secret lovers, she became a passionate woman, betraying her deepest values. With the priests, she was the devout penitent, pretending a humility she didn't truly feel. With the poor, she was a generous benefactor, giving charity that didn't come from her heart. Each role she took on built a specific kind of tension inside her, which her body turned into physical illness. Her heart grew sick from the conflict between her true compassion and her forced hardness. Her liver flared up from the buried anger of living a life that wasn't hers. Her lungs tightened from not having the freedom to breathe her own truth. I then shared with her the core secret of Hermetic medicine. Consciousness is the only true medicine because it alone has the power to create both illness and perfect health. When your consciousness is split, scattered among social masks and conflicting roles. Your body splits too, and each part gets its own problem. When your consciousness comes together as one authentic truth, your body heals and finds harmony again. Disease is just a desperate cry from a body trying to bring back a consciousness lost in a maze of false identities. I taught Isabel a technique I called the medicine of unified consciousness, something I developed after watching how mental fragmentation causes physical fragmentation. First, she had to identify and name each of the fake personalities she'd created to survive different situations. Second, she needed to talk consciously with each part, thanking it for its service, but telling it she no longer needed those masks for protection. She would say to each false self, "I thank you for protecting me, but now I have the courage to be who I really am. I release you with love and take back my power." Third, she had to connect with her true self, the pure consciousness that existed before she built all those protective masks. She did this by sitting quietly each dawn and asking herself, "Who am I when I'm not trying to be anyone in particular? What do I feel when I stop pretending to feel what others expect? What do I want when I'm not chasing what's socially accepted?" Fourth, she had to make the boldest choice of her life, to live fully from her true self, no matter the social consequences. That meant speaking her truth even if it upset others, following her heart even if misunderstood, and showing who she really was even if judged. Fifth, she had to give clear instructions to each organ from her unified consciousness. With her hands over her heart, she said, "My heart no longer needs to beat out of sync with contradiction. I order you to beat in perfect rhythm with my truth." She did the same with each organ, allowing them to work as they were meant to, according to their divine design. Isabel committed to this practice with a determination that was almost desperate. By the 10th day, she felt the false personality start to melt away like wax masks in the sun. By the 20th day, for the first time in years, she felt whole and complete. By the 30th day, her organs began working in harmony for the first time in decades. By the 40th day, when she returned to Paris, she was a completely changed woman. Her husband barely recognized her. Her children looked at her with amazement. The whole court was stunned by her transformation. But the most remarkable thing was the vibrant health she radiated. People around her healed just by being near her. Years later, I learned that Isabel had changed French society with her radical honesty. She was the first woman to divorce publicly in court. She raised her children by entirely new principles. She founded schools so women could learn to be themselves without apology. The truth you need to understand is this: your consciousness is your most powerful medicine. It alone can build or break the reality you live in. When your consciousness is broken up into different masks, your body breaks apart too, and each piece gets its own disease. Most people live like actors who've forgotten who they really are underneath the roles they play. Perfect mothers who secretly hate motherhood. Faithful husbands dreaming of freedom. Successful workers stuck in careers they despise. Spiritual seekers battling deep anger. Every mask you wear creates tension in your body. Every false self you keep alive brings its own illness. Your body can't be well when your consciousness is pulled in opposite directions. The medicine of consciousness isn't about taking pills or potions. It's about reclaiming your true self. When you stop pretending to be someone you're not, your body stops making the diseases tied to those false selves. The biggest question you can ask yourself isn't, "How do I cure my illness?" but, "Who am I really when I'm not pretending to be anyone else?" The answer to that question is your greatest medicine. Your unified consciousness is your inner doctor, your divine pharmacy, your heavenly hospital. But you can only heal when you have the courage to be truly authentic. No masks, no excuses, no fake compromises. The medicine of consciousness doesn't promise that being real will be easy. It promises that it's the only way to be truly well. Her physical body had lost barely 3 pounds over all that time, yet her face glowed with a brightness I had never seen in any person. Her eyes sparkled with a crystal-clear clarity, as if she'd drunk from the fountain of eternal youth. Her skin, instead of showing signs of hunger, seemed completely renewed, taking on the smooth texture of an 18-year-old girl. Although Agatha was already 45, she told me in a voice that rang like silver bells, "Master Paracelsus, I've discovered that the body can feed on things beyond this material world. During these days, I haven't deprived myself of nourishment," she continued, "but I've learned to feed directly from the primal source of all energy." Her words deeply intrigued me because they matched certain Hermetic texts I had studied in the temples of Memphis, where priests talked about a kind of fasting that doesn't weaken the body but strengthens it, letting the cells feed directly on the astral light that fills the universe. "You see, dear master," she explained as we walked through the convent garden at dawn, "whenever we eat physical food, we don't just nourish our bodies. We also bring into ourselves the emotions, thoughts, and experiences of everything we consume. The cow that was sacrificed carried fear of death and sorrow in its flesh. The wheat might have grown in fields, watered by the tears of oppressed peasants." Her words revealed a truth I had sensed, but never fully understood. "The soul's fast," she went on, "is about creating a sacred space inside us where only what perfectly matches our divine nature can enter. It's not about punishing the body, but freeing it from the energetic burdens it's gathered through decades of unconscious eating." She then showed me how, during her fasting, she focused her attention on her solar plexus, imagining it as a golden sun shining nourishing light to every cell in her body. "When I feel my body cry out for food," she said, "I turn my awareness to this inner sun and say specific words that act as keys opening the doors between worlds." In the 3rd week of my stay at the convent, Sister Agatha taught me the exact words she used. "Spiritus meus corpus meo nutrit," she instructed as she placed her hands over her solar plexus. "Lux aeterna cellulis meis fluat." These Latin phrases, kept in their original form to preserve their vibration, mean, "My spirit nourishes my body, and eternal light flows into my cells." But more important than the words were the deep understanding that must come with them. "You must understand," Agatha warned. "When you say these words, you're not asking or begging for nourishment. You're declaring a cosmic truth. You're reminding your body of its real source of sustenance. You're commanding your cells to open and receive the nourishment that's always been there." My own experiments with this practice brought amazing results. In the first few days, I felt normal hunger pangs. But as I went deeper into the technique, I noticed subtle yet profound changes. My mind became crystal clear, like a veil that usually clouds my perception had been lifted. My body, far from weakening, seemed to fill with a vital energy I hadn't felt since youth. Even more striking was the effect on my spiritual senses. During these soul-fast periods, my ability to diagnose illness sharpened greatly. I could clearly sense energetic imbalances in my patients' astral bodies, and the healing techniques I used worked much better. "The body," Agatha said during our final talks, "has forgotten it was made to be immortal. Every time we eat physical food, we send it the message that it's a mortal being dependent on outside substances to survive. But when we learn to nourish ourselves from the primal source directly, we remind it of its true, eternal nature." In the years after my research, I developed this into a full system of cellular regeneration. I found that regular soul fasting, done with the right understanding and technique, can reverse aging, heal diseases thought incurable, and awaken spiritual abilities that usually stay dormant all life long. The complete method has 3 main phases. First, preparation. 7 days before the fast, gradually cut down on physical food while increasing spiritual contemplation. Second, the fast itself, lasting at least 3 days for beginners. Third, reintegration. Slowly bring physical nourishment back, but with a fully transformed mindset. But I have to warn you, dear reader, this isn't something to try out of mere curiosity. The soul's fast is a deep alchemical practice that can truly transform your nature. But it demands serious spiritual preparation and a clear grasp of the hermetic principles behind it. Now, as I write this by flickering candlelight, I feel the weight of sharing these secrets. To you, dear reader, who have followed the golden thread of ancient wisdom this far, I say, the soul's fast is not just another tool in a healer's kit. It's a gateway to remembering your true divine nature. It's the way to reclaim your cosmic inheritance and turn your body into a temple worthy of the light of the Most High. The soul's fast is the path to conscious immortality, the realization that your body can be an eternal vessel for divine service. And in that eternal service, you'll find the true fulfillment no earthly food can ever give. When he finally showed up at my door on a snowy January night, so thick it felt like a veil between worlds, I immediately realized the rumors were not only true, but didn't even come close to the reality. Cornelius radiated a vitality I'd never seen in any person. His skin had the pearly glow of a newborn. His eyes shone as clear as crystalline water. "Master Paracelsus," he said in a voice that sounded like heavenly music, "I've come to share with you the greatest secret in all creation, the art of dying and being reborn every day, turning sleep into a sacred ritual of total renewal." Over the next few days, as the snowstorm kept us locked inside my lab, Cornelius revealed knowledge that changed my understanding of the human body forever. He told me he had learned these techniques in the underground temples of Alexandria, where a secret order of Egyptian priests had preserved for thousands of years the secrets of conscious regeneration. "You need to understand," he said as we warmed our hands by the fire, "that sleep isn't just a time when the body rests. It's the moment when the soul is freed from the bonds of matter and can do the deepest work of healing and renewal. But most people sleep like animals, completely unaware of the miraculous processes they could activate." Then he showed me how, every night before falling asleep, he performed a specific ritual taught by those Alexandrian priests. First, he'd lie perfectly straight, arms stretched out at his sides, forming the shape of a cross. Then he'd quietly recite a series of invocations in ancient Egyptian, words that had been passed down from master to student for over 3,000 years. "Keper Ra, Keper Kepu," he intoned with a steady rhythm matching his heartbeat. "Neverger Unhot." He explained these meant he who becomes in all forms, and the Lord of the limit lives in peace. It was a declaration of intent to the cosmic forces that govern death and rebirth. But what mattered even more than the words was the visualization he taught me to do alongside them. Cornelius instructed me to picture my physical body as a sacred temple that must be purified and completely renewed every night. "Visualize," he said, "your body slowly dissolving into golden light, starting at your feet and rising up to the crown of your head. Every cell, every tissue, every organ breaks down into pure light particles, ascending towards the heavens. During this conscious dissolution," he said, "the soul is fully freed from physical limits and can access higher planes of creation, where perfect templates of all material forms exist. In those realms," he said, eyes shining with excitement. Your soul can see the perfect design of your body, as originally conceived in the Creator's mind, without sickness, without aging, without the deformities it's gathered through years of faulty thinking. The next phase was consciously recreating the body. Once you've seen that perfect design, Cornelius explained, you must give a clear command for your body to rebuild itself according to that divine pattern. This happens by saying a specific declaration with full conviction and unshakable faith. The words he taught me for this phase were just as powerful. Corpusum secundum, perfectum exemplar renovatur. Omnis morbus, omnis senectus, ovnis corruptio, e corporis me templo expenditur. In our language this means, my body is renewed according to the perfect pattern. All illness, aging, and corruption are expelled from the temple of my body. The first days practicing were remarkable. Though I didn't see dramatic results right away, I noticed subtle but important changes. My sleep became deeper and more refreshing. Each morning I woke up with energy and mental clarity I hadn't felt in years, and minor ailments that had troubled me for months slowly disappeared. But it was during the second week that I experienced something that forever changed how I understood the limits of the human body. One night, while doing the dissolution visualization, I felt my consciousness expand beyond my physical form. I could clearly see the room from a higher vantage point, as if floating a few inches above my sleeping body. In that expanded state, I saw my physical body as it really was. A cluster of dense energies temporarily holding human form, yet completely flexible and open to transformation by conscious will. One morning, looking into the polished bronze mirror in my lab, I noticed the lines around my eyes had vanished completely. My hair, which had started showing gray strands, had regained the rich chestnut color of my youth. My skin had a texture and glow I hadn't enjoyed in over 10 years. This is just the beginning, Cornelius told me when I shared my surprise. With years of dedicated practice, it's possible not only to stop aging but to reverse it entirely. The body can be returned to any age the mind chooses, and kept in that perfect state indefinitely. He then explained that the great masters of ancient times, those who achieved true physical immortality, weren't people who escaped death, but those who learned to die and be reborn consciously every day. Death, he said solemnly, isn't the opposite of life. It's a transformation that usually happens once at the end of physical existence. But those who know this secret can experience that renewal every night. Over the following months, I refined this into a daily practice as natural as breathing. Every night before sleep, I performed the full ritual of conscious dissolution and rebuilding. My body no longer shows signs of aging. My physical abilities have improved dramatically, and my overall health is better than it was when I was 20. But more important than the physical benefits are the changes in my consciousness. By practicing daily death and rebirth, I've developed a deep understanding of the temporary nature of all physical forms and, at the same time, a greater appreciation for life and its endless possibilities for renewal. Now, as the first light of dawn filters through my lab windows, I feel I've shared with you one of my most precious secrets. The daily resurrection isn't just a technique for physical renewal, but a profound spiritual practice that connects us with our true, immortal nature. Each night when you close your eyes and surrender to sleep, remember you have the chance to die to all that has been and be reborn as a better version of yourself. In that conscious death and rebirth lies the key to eternal youth and perfect health, your natural divine birthright. Chapter 11. The Alchemical Marriage. In the quiet stillness of my lab, where flames flicker with ancient secrets. I've come to understand the deepest truth every person carries inside. A sacred union waiting to happen. I'm not talking about earthly marriages, but the eternal bond between the immortal spirit and obedient matter. I clearly remember Isabella de Medici, who came to see me in Salzburg with a body broken by what doctors called the consumption of the soul. Her cheeks, once glowing like a spring sunrise, were now pale. Her eyes, once bright like stars, had lost their shine. Even though the court physician said she was beyond help, I immediately saw what was really wrong. "You're at war with yourself," I told Isabella as I checked her subtle pulses. "Your spirit wants to rise to the heavens, but your body clings to the earth. This inner conflict is destroying you." For weeks, I watched how her divided nature showed itself in conflicting symptoms. Mornings brought fevers fueled by fire, sending her into wild, mystical visions. Afternoons brought deep sadness, tears draining the life from her cells. That's when I introduced her to the alchemical marriage, the secret knowledge Egyptian masters kept hidden in the temples of Karnak. I explained to Isabella that every cell in her body was both altar and temple, where the divine and human must meet in harmony. "Put your right hand over your heart," I said, "and your left on your belly. Take a deep breath and say, 'I am the heaven that descends and the earth that rises.' Within me, the sacred union of opposites is complete." At first, she resisted. Her mind, trained to think in separation, couldn't grasp how she could be both material and spiritual at once. But when she finally accepted the truth, the miracle happened. A golden light spread from her chest, reaching every organ, tissue, and cell. The alchemical marriage isn't just a healing method. It's a restoration of our original nature. When Adam was formed from clay, that clay already held the divine spark. Disease starts when we forget this unity and live as broken beings. In the months that followed, Isabella transformed in ways that amazed everyone at court. Her skin regained its glow, her eyes shone with inner fire again, and her presence brought peace to all around her. Most importantly, she found the secret to immortality, not endless physical life, but a conscious awareness of our eternal nature. Now, if you're seeking truth, I pass this practice to you. Every morning when you wake, say with confidence, "Today I celebrate the sacred union of my spirit and my body." Each cell is a guest at this divine feast. Then picture a golden light flowing down from your crown, meeting a silver light rising from your feet, joining in your heart in a glow beyond all duality. This is true alchemy, not turning base metals into gold, but transforming divided awareness into perfect unity. When you achieve this inner marriage, you'll realize you're not a being who owns a body, but a living temple where the infinite becomes finite and the finite becomes infinite. Chapter 12. The Eternal Legacy. Shadows grow longer in my lab as I write these last words, fully aware that soon I will journey beyond the reach of reason. It's not death that awaits me, but transformation. Anyone who has uncovered the secrets of the sacred word can never truly die. I now call to mind my final student, Marcus von Heim, a young scribe who came to me on a stormy night, soaked not just by rain, but by tears of despair. His father, the noble Wilhelm von Hockenheim, lay close to death, ravaged by what doctors called putrefaction of the blood. "Master Paracelsus," he pleaded with a broken voice, "I've heard you have the power to bring the dying back to life. Please, save my father." I looked at him with the compassion that comes from knowing the illusion of separation. "Marcus," I said, "I'm not here to save bodies, but to awaken souls. The true legacy isn't extending temporary life. It's realizing the eternal life that already lives within us. For 7 days I taught Marcus the fundamentals of the highest art. I showed him how every word spoken with sacred intention becomes a divine command, how every thought held with love turns into real change, and how every conscious breath is an act of universal creation. But the greatest lesson came when he realized it wasn't he who would heal his father, but that his father would heal through him by recognizing his own divine nature. "Go to your father," I instructed, "and whisper these words. Father, you are more than this suffering body. You are the eternal spirit who chose this experience to awaken. I see in you the undying light that was never born and will never die." Marcus came back 3 days later, not with the joy of a medical miracle, but with the calm of someone who had grasped an infinite mystery. His father had passed, yes, but not into death, rather into an expansion of consciousness that blessed the whole family. In his final moments, Willem radiated such a bright light that those nearby swore they saw angels around his bed. "Master," Marcus said with new steadiness, "I understand now. The true legacy isn't stopping the body from leaving, but awakening consciousness to what never leaves." "Exactly, dear Marcus. And now, to you who have followed these teachings to the end, I give the most precious legacy, the knowledge that you are an immortal being having a mortal experience, not a mortal being chasing immortality. Every word you've read in this book is a seed of eternity planted in your consciousness. Every technique you've learned is a step toward realizing your divine nature. Every conscious breath you take from now on is an act of resurrection. The real power of the sacred word isn't in curing illness, but in awakening the awareness that we were never sick, only asleep. It's not about changing the body, but remembering that we are the consciousness observing the body. It's not about avoiding death, but understanding that we are life itself, temporarily expressing in human form. Now, as the candles burn low and my pen rests, I leave you with this final teaching. Each dawn is your chance to be reborn. Each conscious word your power to create. Each act of love your gift to healing the world. May those who find this book in the future recognize not the words of a man from the 10th century, but the eternal whispers of awakened consciousness speaking through time, reminding them that the sacred word isn't something to learn, but something to remember, for it's always been our true nature. The eternal legacy isn't this manuscript, but the light shining now in your awakened heart. Use it wisely, for you are the next guardian of these sacred mysteries.